This is the moment we've all been waiting for the thousands in attendance and the millions watching around the world. Let's get ready to rumble!
Welcome to the Junkyard Pod. I'm Tony Pesta, joined by Jackson Flickinger, and the Cleveland Cavaliers are off to a perfect 4-0 start. They're one of just 3 teams left with a perfect record. The first time the Cavs have begun a season 4-0 since 2016-17 when LeBron and Kyrie were still on the roster. It was the first time in franchise history that they had ever won the first 3 games of the season by double digits. And before I let Jackson in here, I want to share a few sample size stats because the Cavs right now, they rank in the top 3 for points per game, offensive rating, field goal percentage, and three-point percentage. It's been a huge success for the offense to start the season, and they are 4th in defensive rating, where they've been just as dominant as usual, but it's the offense that is really changing things for them, in my opinion. Jackson, how are you feeling about this start to the season for the Cavs?
I am really excited about the start. One of the thing that I'm most excited about is that Darius Garland and Donovan Mitchell are playing very well together, and that is what is fueling a lot of these wins, especially when you're looking at the Knicks game. That's one of the things where the Cavs played their best basketball when both were on the court, and that's shown through in the stats. When both are sharing the floor, the team has a plus 19.4 net rating. It's just 4 games, but that is phenomenal. And a 116.8 offensive rating and a 97.5 defensive rating. So basically, these Garland and Mitchell are playing phenomenal on both sides of the ball. You saw that especially last night against the Knicks, where it wasn't your turn, my turn, even though they both combined for over 50 plus points. Garland was doing a lot of his damage off ball. Donovan was allowing him to do that, but also not just being a spectator while Darius was going off. And that's what it has seemed like. Even when Darius has had great games, when Donovan is out there, it's like Donovan's just kind of spectating, and that wasn't the case against the Knicks. So there's a lot of things to be excited about, and I think the offense is definitely the thing that is the most jarringly different now.
Yeah, and that was the big thing that we wanted to see change under Kenny Atkinson. It was the whole thought process behind bringing in Kenny Atkinson is this is a guy who has a background in getting teams to score the ball. And that's what he's done so far. There's been more involvement and synergy within this Cavs offense than we've seen over the last few years. I get it. It's only 4 games, but we are off to a great start. Now, we have to talk about Darius Garland and his standout performance. But before we do that, I want to remind everyone that you can listen to the Junkyard Pod on Apple, Spotify, and YouTube. We also do live watch parties on Playback TV/Fear the Sword. Links are in the description. Those streams have been a lot of fun, and I want to thank everyone who has been tuning in for them. And yeah, if you want to support us, then go ahead and follow on all of those platforms. Leave a like, drop a comment, pop up in the chat during those live streams. It all really helps us, and we really appreciate it. But Jackson, now that the plugs are out of the way, I want to go ahead and set the stage for that Garland performance because it was truly good for the soul. It felt good to see. Last night, Garland puts up 34 points, 3 assists, 3 rebounds, 2 steals, and 2 blocks in Madison Square Garden. He shoots 12 of 19 from the floor, including 4 of 5 shooting in the paint and 5 of 8 shooting from deep. He was lethal against the drop coverage, which I'll talk about later. And on top of all this, he played great defense. The Knicks, they really tried to target him as much as possible, but Garland held his own throughout the entire game, ended in a big block on Jalen Brunson in crunch time. Donovan Mitchell told reporters after the game that anyone who was against DG last season, stay on that side. Don't come back now. And so all in all, the DG redemption arc is off to a good start. What did you take away from his big game in New York last night?
I do think it's right that you brought up the defense. I want to write something on Fear the Sword about his defense. I don't know if I'll have time to do that, but I would like to do that because I think that was really important. They were targeting him. And one of the things that Atkinson mentioned in his media day before training camp started, somebody asked him if Donovan and Darius could work. And one of the things that he said is, well, I think Darius is a really good defender. And I think that he can even grow even more. And I thought that was kind of an odd thing to say. Like, there's a lot of things you can praise Darius for. I've never heard people really go out of their way to praise his defense. And I think
I've given him credit for his defense. I wouldn't say I've ever praised him, though.
right. You can say he's not as bad as someone of his size
He's
should
not like
be.
Trae Young.
Right, but that's
No
not
disrespect to Trae Young.
I mean, disrespect to Trae Young on the defensive side of the ball, but he is higher than your guy Ty Jerome on Basketball Reference's MVP power rankings. So that's something to keep in mind.
Yeah, they got to keep the race interesting. If we all know Jerome's going to end up taking it, but they got to keep it interesting so people pay attention.
Back to my point. So he brought up how Garland can be a good defender, which isn't something that I think that we've ever seen before, and I think that switching in the way that the Cavs are currently doing so requires a level of buy-in that just trying to lazily, hedge and stuff doesn't actually do. And I think we've seen that with Garland, where he really was bought in and engaged on the defensive side of the ball and really just showed how good of a defender he could be. And I think that's one of the reasons why they were able to pull off that comeback. They scored 36 points in the fourth quarter, but they also held the Knicks, throughout that second half. And that was a big part of why they were able to make that comeback. But the offense was great. That's what's going to get to headlines. And that is what has stood out. And I think the most interesting thing to me is that it wasn't just Darius got really hot from beyond the 3-point line and just made a bunch of threes. He was moving off ball. He was attacking inside. I know the assist numbers weren't great. I don't know what they are off the top of my head, but he was getting it out to shooters. He was doing a good job playing within the offense and not ever feeling like he's hijacking the offense. And not that he's somebody who does hijack the offense, but that's what it's always seemed like with these two guards, is that when one is on, the other one is just watching.
Yeah, and so that was actually the first time since 2022 that the Cavs have scored above or 110 or more points in New York. And it's not because they haven't been playing games there. They played a lot of games in New York over the last few years. Too many for some of us. And it's the first time they've managed to get to 110. So it was a huge night for the offense. Darius Garland was a big reason for that. You kind of mentioned this, and I have a whole little rant that I want to go on. Well, not a rant, a spiel, I guess. Because Kenny Atkinson is using Garland in ways that I've really enjoyed. He's using him as a screener in creative ways so that Garland is catching the ball with an advantage rather than attacking the defense from a standstill. I'm going to do my best to upload a couple clips for the YouTube audience so you can see what I mean. The opening play of the game, they have Garland setting a screen for Mitchell, then ghosting a screen for Wade, and it ends up him catching the ball with an advantage. Just little stuff like that. There was a possession in the third or fourth quarter last night where they had Garland catch the ball, free throw line extended, and then flow into a pick and roll with Allen. And that stood out to me because I can't really recall the Cavs having Garland start with a touch inside of the perimeter like that. Normally he's way above the break running a high pick and roll. But I actually thought Garland looked strong last night, like physically strong. He was really going at Deuce McBride, especially one of the few players who's shorter than him. And he was just going straight at him, putting his body into him, getting to the rim, getting to that floater. The last thing that I want to note, and I know Jackson will appreciate this, there's a play in the third quarter where Garland is kind of standing around up top at the logo, doing what we've complained about plenty of times before. And you know what he does? He goes backdoor. Something clicks for him and he realizes, hey, my man is denying the ball and I'm at the logo. Cuts backdoor. Wade hits him with a pass, ends up drawing a foul. And that was big because it was early in the shot clock too. It wasn't like a desperation thing. There was like 17 seconds on the shot clock. So this is all great stuff. And I think it shows that Kenny has a vision for Darius Garland. And up to this point, he's implementing that very well.
One of the things that we mentioned throughout is that it's going to take a while for Kenny Atkinson's offense to really crystallize with this group. And right now, I think they are ahead of schedule right now in terms of how they're operating and the ways that they are like meshing together. So I think that's one of the things that he is being more active off ball and all that stuff, but he's also, with the deeper rotations, he's not playing as many minutes. You're not seeing him play like 37, 38 minutes a game. I'm not sure what his minute total was for last game, if you have that up. but it
I think it
wasn't
was around 33. I know most of the
right, which
starters
is
played like under 35 minutes, which is great considering it was a back and forth game.
right. So I think that is allowing them to really, when they're on the court, they're really buying into the system as opposed to like we're going to have to pace ourselves until the fourth quarter, walking the ball off the court. So it's hard to not be super optimistic about what we've seen. Everything that we've dreamed about seeing from this group, we've already seen it in 4 games, and we saw it against a team that I think the Knicks are still finding their way. I think they're also a tad overrated, but this is a team that's had the Cavs numbers for 2 years now. We've seen them lose games in embarrassing fashion to them, and it seemed like they were going to do it again, but they didn't. And I think that's a huge step forward, and we'll see how that carries over to the Lakers game, because I think the Lakers right now, they are a better team than the Knicks, and you're going to get the best punch from LeBron. So we're going to learn more, but this was an A+ performance.
Definitely. And I do think, Karl Anthony Towns, I've only watched 2 Knicks games, to be fair. I watched the opening game against Boston and then this game against Cleveland. And Towns has just been abused in that drop. I mean, the Cavs, when I was rewatching this, the Cavs were just picking him apart. The last thing I want to say on Garland, the big question for him is always going to be, can he beat the drop coverage? Speaking of, Karl Anthony Towns. And he needs to be aggressive in these situations, especially when it comes to asserting himself as a scorer. We know that he can get downhill and make plays to his bigs. But when teams back off and dare him to beat them, he hasn't always accepted that challenge. He's too much of a pass-first player at times. Wasn't great at finishing at the rim last season. But last night, he was all business. He was pulling threes against the drop. He was hitting that floater in the lane. I have the numbers on the season so far. He's 9 of 12 shooting floaters, 82nd percentile. Hopefully that stays, somewhat in that range, because that would be great if he could get that in between game.
Yeah, I mean that's not gonna continue to that level.
But I want him to stay above average percentile, is what I mean. That would really help his game, because it makes the Cavs that much more difficult to game plan for if you can't just say, all right, we're just going to drop on Darius Garland and he's not going to beat us.
Well, one of the things that I feel like it's been easy to defend that floater, because he has very limited options. Like when he would drive inside, it was either floater or pass to big. There was no pass out. There was no other option there. He wasn't really going to take that mid-range shot. And I think if you look at his shot zone from yesterday's game, he was 3 for 3 in the restricted area, 4 for 5 between the restricted area and the free throw line, 0 for 3 in mid-range shots, and then 4 for 7 from above the break. That really shows that he is comfortable attacking in a lot of different ways, most of that coming off the dribble. And I think that's something that we really haven't seen. It's not that we want to see Darius take a bunch of contested mid-range shots or anything like that, but this just illustrates that he's doing a lot of things. Like there's a lot more outcomes in the decision tree now than there were, last season. And he's, in a lot better place mentally and physically, it seems.
Yeah, definitely. And again, if he's able to beat the drop coverage through any means, whether it's passing or scoring on his own, that just makes the Cavs so much more difficult to defend. And it's what we saw last night. So I want to branch out now and talk about really, when we talk about a Cavs versus the Knicks matchup, it almost always comes down to rebounding. This is going to be something we focus on forever. The Cavs last night at halftime, they were being drilled on the glass. At least it felt like it. The Knicks had grabbed 11 offensive rebounds in the first half. And the reason why I'm bringing this up is because Kenny Atkinson went ahead and showed them the film from that first half.
Bold.
Specifically a play where New York grabbed 3 straight offensive rebounds in one possession. And clearly it worked. It inspired them, because the Cavs held them to only 2 offensive rebounds the rest of the game. We discussed that during our playback stream. The Cavs were losing, 1, because they weren't hitting open 3-pointers, and 2, because they couldn't secure stops. They couldn't get on the glass. And so I've seen this discussion on Twitter about, why was this message? How come Kenny Atkinson was able to get through to them, but it wasn't conveyed properly under JB? Like all Kenny did was say, hey, this is bad. We need to fix this. And so I will just say that for whatever reason, the Cavs right now, this goes back into what we were saying with the offense too, they're fully bought into Kenny Atkinson and his vision. And again, for whatever reason, JB had lost that buy-in seemingly a long time ago. And so it's great that Kenny's getting through and making a difference right now. And sometimes that's all that matters. It's just who's saying it and if you believe them or not. Because JB apparently had lost the locker room. Kenny is getting through to them.
One thing I do want to say, going back to that 2023 series, which for some reason that's the only thing we can talk about. Dean Wade was unplayable. Isaac Okoro was your starting small forward. Isaac Okoro is not a good rebounder. Dean Wade is a phenomenal rebounder. Just swapping those two in for each other in a game like this makes a huge difference. Also, most of the Cavs rebounding issues they were schematic, and you wouldn't have been able to show something, like they just weren't making the adjustment to, we don't need to step up on Jalen Brunson every time he drives, etc. So I do want to point out that it's not that, like, there were things keeping them from being a good rebounding team in that series. And while we're kind of on the topic, because I'm contractually obligated to bring up Dean Wade, I thought he did a phenomenal job on Jalen Brunson. So that is something to really keep an eye on. Like, what kind of players can they put Dean Wade on? Will they start him on LeBron next game? I kind of think that he probably would get that matchup.
Probably a good matchup for him.
So I think that's
LeBron James, good matchup for Dean Wade.
Right. So I think that's that's something to definitely keep in mind, where it's like, how many versatile ways can they use Dean Wade as a defender while still getting his rebounding? You pointed this out in the grades for Fear the Sword. Didn't have a good shooting night, but when you're playing that kind of level of defense, it really helps.
Yeah, I mean, Dean Wade, we're going to talk about him a lot as we move through the season because, again, he's not really, when you look at the box score, it might be hard to see, like, really, this is the guy that's making such a big difference. Watch him defensively. Just watch him. Don't look at anybody else. Don't look at the ball. Just watch Dean Wade. He's really such an impactful defender. He's been great to start the year here. All right, moving into this is our last segment, I think, unless you have any other players that you want to shout out. But I figure we have to keep talking about Evan Mobley because these last two games, they haven't been as impressive for Mobley, but he's still very clearly trending in the right direction, if you ask me. His scoring is up. His usage is up. Still maybe the best defender on the planet. So those are all good things. Last night, Mobley took 0 field goal attempts in the first quarter, took only 3 in the second quarter, and then he finished the game shooting 5 of 9 in the second half, 10 points in the second half, finished with 17 overall. Really came alive in key moments of the game. The Cavs at one point were down by 13. Him and Garland really got going and brought them back into it. We saw that confidence continue to show in moments where Mobley was getting to the rim, finishing through contact. He knocked down another three-pointer in this game. So he's currently 4 of 8 on the season. He's on pace to double his three-point total from the year before. So all around a great start for Mobley in a season where we really needed to see some growth. I would say he's showing it.
Yeah, I think it's good to highlight how he was able to turn around what was, I would say, a bad or disappointing game in the first half to really salvage it. I think one of the things that you like is, it seems like in the past, it's been like you could get Mobley going early, but it's harder to get him going to that level in the third and fourth quarter. And especially with them losing, going basically, like, hey, Evan Mobley's going to be a big reason why we get out of this slump if we do get out of it. And we saw that, that works out. I think a lot of his best stuff came when he was able to play center, which, has been the case a lot, but he was able to attack Karl Anthony Towns well. I don't remember the name of the second center that they played.
Jericho Sims.
Yes, he was able to attack.
It's okay. Well, I don't think many people are aware of the Knicks front.
Yeah, I mean, I should have. I know Sims. I just didn't have it on top of my head. But he was able to keep attacking in those situations. You'd like to see him attack more when Allen is out there. But this is a tough matchup for him. Any team that has a smaller, switchier team has kind of given Mobley trouble throughout his career. So you're not surprised, but you're just happy to see him break out. And I'm really excited to see how he plays against the Lakers. So I think that'll be a fun matchup on both sides of the ball. So, and Mobley did have a really good defensive game as well. He seemed to be everywhere. He only had, he did have 3 blocks. I was about to say it. It seemed like he was defending every single shot, and he just really was everywhere on that side of the court. He led the starters in plus minus with plus 14, and I think that reflects how well he played on defense.
Yeah, it's almost funny at this point how much we focus so much on his offensive development.
Mm-hmm.
We talk nonstop about it, and then we kind of just gloss over the fact that he's legitimately a top 3 defender on the planet right now. Like, he's an unbelievable defender. He's off to a great start this year. I think he's averaging a career high in blocks. I should have pulled that up just to clarify, but I mean, it's only 4 games, but still, he's just been completely all over the place. He's blocking every shot. He's contesting everything, getting steals. To me, it seems like he's holding up when he is playing the 5 on defense as well. He's rebounding. It's just been a great start to the year for Mobley. His offense, it slowed down a little bit from those first 2 games where we were really excited, but it's still up. He's still doing good. 17 points would have been above his average last season. So it's been a good start for Mobley. And yeah, any other last takes here?
Well, one of the things that I do want to point out is that it's still easy and understandable to want to split up Allen and Mobley and say, oh, well, Mobley played so much better when Allen's not out there. But it's not like Allen's not providing a huge impact as well. And I think you saw that last night too. 15 points, 15 rebounds. You're getting that level of, like, I know, was it Kobe Altman who said in like 2021 or whatever that we're not going to apologize for like 48 minutes of good center play, and it's like Andre Drummond and Mickey or something like that. But like, there is something there when you have 48 minutes of elite defensive, center play and elite offensive center play as well. So you'd like to see them get in a little more of a sync on offense, but that's one of those things that I think is going to take a little bit of time to develop under Atkinson. But as you've seen, his vision for getting the guards to play on the same page is, looking really good right now. I believe that it could look the same with the centers, at least, some version of that.
Yeah, and I think we're seeing that vision. It hasn't been perfect, but we're seeing Mobley handling inverted pick and rolls. We're seeing Allen play more above the break. Kenny clearly has, an idea of how he wants the 2 bigs to play. And look, I mean, the offense has just been drilling teams. I know they haven't played many great defensive teams yet. Have they played any good? I don't think they've played a good defensive team yet. I know the Knicks are supposed to be a good defensive team, but Karl Anthony Towns, again, was just getting picked apart. And to be fair, that game was a little bit of a rock fight to start off. I'm not saying the Knicks are horrible, but the point that I'm making here, the point that I'm making is that this offense has been red hot to start the season. Kenny has really made a difference. We'll see if it's able to hold up across the next 78 games or whatever, 77 games, but it's a very encouraging start. The Cavs are 4-0. Many people are saying one of the best teams in basketball.
The best team. Now. I wouldn't say that, unfortunately, because of the Celtics, and that pains me. But you would like the Lakers and Magic games are going to be huge to let us know how real this offense is. Both defenses are good. You have a Defensive Player of the Year candidate in Anthony Davis, probably the favorite if voting was to happen after 4 games. And then the Magic are, we know who the Magic are. They are one of the best defenses in the league. So can the offense score 1 million points against those teams? We'll see, but it should be fun to learn more about this team.
Definitely. It's going to be an opportunity to really see what they're made of and how real all these changes actually are. With that said, that's all for this episode of the Junkyard Pod. Like I said at the top, if you like the show and you want to support us, go ahead and follow on Apple, Spotify, and YouTube. Drop a like, leave a rating, leave a comment, do it all because it all helps. I'll be hosting the live watch party on YouTube and Playback along with Corey this Wednesday. So go ahead and join us for that game against the Lakers. And with all that being said, go Cavs.
I agree. Go Cavs. I don't have anything for Brian. Sorry.